You gotta give Fortnite credit. Over 2,000 updates in 3 years is a remarkable achievement, but it goes without saying there's been, well, a few bad apples.
What are the odds? The mix!
And so to truly understand just how many times this game has been broken, we have to take it all the way back to 2017. The first year of Fortnite was also one of its most important because it had to make a good first impression on all the new players, so Epic brought out some of the most loved updates ever. We had slurp juices, the bush, and launch pads in Season 1. It felt like they couldn't miss. But unfortunately, the next item to be added completely missed the mark. This was the smoke grenade, which was met with some mixed feelings by the community. While other items were universally loved, the smoke grenades caused big complaints from a lot of players. Some didn't mind it, but people complained that it gave you a free revive on your teammate. It could ruin the final circle. But aside from that, Season 1 went pretty smoothly. But when we came into Season 2, that's when Epic kicked it up a notch. It was in this season where Epic actually added the infamous Boogie Bombs to Fortnite. Of course, these are some of the most iconic items in the history of the game, and yet they're also one of the most hated. When it first came out in Season 2, players despised the Boogie Bombs. It was so broken that people would quit the game over it. Now, luckily it was nerfed, but all in all, no matter how many times the Boogie Bomb returns, people still hate on it. And the same can be said for the minigun. This is another item that came out in Season 2, and it was really the first oppressive weapon of Fortnite. Before the minigun came out, people really didn't pay attention to your ping, but because this thing beamed you through walls, it started the ping debate that still goes on to this day. And due to the minigun releasing back in 2017 when people really didn't know how to build, it was super OP to a lot of players. But no one realized just how bad it was gonna get as Fortnite entered 2018. This was the year Fortnite went from just popular to one of the most famous games in the entire world, and yeah, this meant hundreds of millions of eyes were on it, so Epic had to be really careful with their updates. With the start of the year, we had Season 3, and Epic decided to test the waters by adding the guided missile launcher. This was such a fun and fresh item for Fortnite, which is exactly what Epic were looking for, but unfortunately, a lot of players in the community hated this RPG. The reason for this was that people would just sit in a safe area, camp, and then spam rockets over and over at someone without even peeking or revealing their location. It was kind of ridiculous. Not to mention the fact that people eventually learned how to rocket ride themselves with this thing, which took it to a whole new level and ended up getting it permanently vaulted. Guided missile aside, Season 3 also gave the community the LMG, and if you were around back then, you know how people reacted to this one, especially when it first came out. This thing was so overpowered. It let you spray 100 bullets straight with no cooldown, no reloading, just 100 bullets with barely any recoil. It was so broken. And then we had Season 4, which added one of the first universally hated items we've ever had in Fortnite, the stink bomb. Now, up until this point, a lot of weapons were hated by some but loved by others, but it's safe to say that a good 90% of the community were not happy with the stink bombs. They completely stop you being able to heal, and in that late game, everyone would just get dominated by the fart clouds of smoke. And if that wasn't enough, Epic decided to drop another wild weapon into the mix, and that was the drum gun. This thing sprayed bullets like there was no tomorrow, reloaded really quickly, and did insane damage. For a while, the community actually considered it the best gun in the game, and eventually, Epic just got rid of it. But not before hopping into Season 5. This is when Fortnite got one of the most broken weapons they have ever added. This thing was the double-barrel shotgun, a gun so powerful that it would obliterate anyone with 2 shots. It didn't help that this gun released also with the grappler, which made it 10 times more overpowered. The same goes for the heavy sniper, another powerful weapon, which at the time would one-shot pretty much anyone it hit. It would also break any wall instantly, and while modern players would probably find the heavy really useful, back in Chapter 1, it was a complete no from the community. So we all moved on to the final season of that year, which was the Kevin the Cube theme Season 6. And with that theme came a ton of new features around the island, and certain POIs you were actually able to find new consumables known as Shadow Stones. When they first came out, the community absolutely loved these, but unfortunately a glitch quickly appeared which completely destroyed the Shadow Stone's reputation. Essentially, it made people invisible for the entire match. It was so broken, and this paired with the cube monsters all over the place, it was just a really chaotic season. The nail on the coffin for these updates was the mounted turret. The community considered this thing the worst trap Fortnite has ever added. At first, everyone thought this thing was just a noob item that nobody would take seriously, but as soon as pros learned how to use them properly, they became one of the most powerful items in the entire game. Luckily, we just never saw them again. Fortnite tried to quickly forget about it, move on to new year with 2019. One huge year to another, Fortnite just kept pulling out the big guns in 2019. And while the last year's had some hated updates, the items for 2019 were cemented in people's memories. For starters, we had Season 7, the most notorious season of all for hated updates. You might be asking why, Alright, so here we go. Ready? They added the planes. These were literally one of the most hated things ever added to Fortnite, especially back in 2019. They had unlimited fuel, could smash through entire builds at high speed, and had an OP machine gun that you could just spam as long as you wanted. And when fans were already riled up about how ridiculous the Stormwings were, Epic went and threw them another curveball, the Infinity Blade. It's like they took the reaction to the planes and said, you know what, let's just make them 100 times more angry. The Infinity Blade was the single most overpowered item that Fortnite has ever seen, no ifs or buts. But the funniest part is that these two weren't even the only iconic hated items in Season 7. This is the exact same season that also brought us the boom boxes. What was Epic thinking? Now luckily they turned it down as they moved into Season 8. The only hated items in this season were the Poison Dart Trap, which is kind of laughed at by the community because of how useless it was, and then the Baller, which was because they were all over the map. I mean, the Ballers were insanely fast, had tons of HP, and the final circle of tournaments would literally just be 20 of them flying around. It was hilarious. But people, you know, they just didn't really have a lot of patience for it. And so as time went on, then came Season 9. While we were all distracted by the pretty visuals and the brand new Tilted Towers, Epic were busy sneaking in the two most overpowered shotguns we've had in Fortnite. Obviously, we had the Drum Shotgun, which was just, I mean, look at this thing in action. It's ridiculous. And then we had the Combat Shotgun, which a lot of players actually loved, but everyone agreed it was a little too strong. Guns aside, we also got a new grenade that people really disliked. Epic saw everyone dunk on the boombox and still decided to go ahead and add this item. Of course, I'm talking about the Airstrike Grenade. This thing was vaulted straight away because it decimated builds and ruined like the whole point of Fortnite. And so as the summer of 2019 came to an end, we were treated to the final season of Chapter 1, Season X. The first thing Epic decided to do in this season was add an update that would remove turbo building. This completely broke the meta in Season X and caused a massive uproar. For a few days, it was that back later. But obviously it wasn't the biggest controversy of Season X. Most of you will hear that and already know which update we're about to talk about. It's the most hated item on the entire list, and to this day we have never seen it return. They go by the name of Brutes, but we also call them mechs. These things were so broken that it became a trend for pros to literally uninstall the game on social media as a protest until they got removed. They were so broken, so overpowered, and just really unfun to play against. It seemed like every game you just get dominated by a mech, and it ruined the whole season for a lot of people. Now luckily we never had to put up with something like that again. Fortnite said new year, new me with 2020. So here we are, it's Chapter 2 time, and Epic has a lot of mistakes from the last few years to make up for. So with Season 1 they take things easy, there are no wacky weapons, no insane OP strats, it's just a chill fresh start. But there are still some things that annoyed the community. Firstly, we had our first live event of Chapter 2 during Season 1, and we all got really excited for it. It was Star Wars themed, it started off really well, but then it kind of turned into a talk show and it just kept going and going on and on. People are just really disappointed with this one. And throughout the season, the block POI was having some real problems with the community-made locations. There's some big controversies and Epic just had to straight up remove the block, but unfortunately the community wasn't happy with this update. And that was about it for Season 1 though, as we said, pretty lame, but Epic dialed things to 11 in Season 2. Henchmen and boss areas were spread all over the map, and while some people loved them, most thought it was super annoying to fight these NPCs every single time they wanted to land somewhere. Also, can we forget the deafening Henchmen music? Turn it down, please. At the same time, Epic vaulted the most OG item of Chapter 2 at the time, the damage traps. So many memories were gone when they removed these. People are still upset that they aren't back. But suddenly, Season 3 is here, the map is flooded, and we have Coral Castle, the most hated POI of Chapter 2. Swimming around this new flooded map was cool, but that was about it. People just really didn't like how hard it was to do basic tasks. I mean, it was harder to farm, harder to rotate, it was just a mess. And Season 3 also gave us Marauders. These are some of the most annoying NPCs to deal with, even more than the Henchmen, because they chased you. Luckily, we didn't have to deal with them once Season 4 came around, but even this Marvel season had hated updates of its own. Put it simply, a lot of people didn't like that there were so many mythics. I mean, too many in fact. People complained a lot about all kinds of different items and weapons. Some were insanely OP, some were broken. Like I said, it was kind of a mess. And we can't forget that Season 4 also gave us Fortnite Bears, which changed the game completely for 2 weeks. Instead of getting sent back to the lobby, it turned everyone into shadows, and this was in default playlists. People hated it, but now we're here about to get all caught up with 2021. This year actually started off with a bang. We had Season 5, insane crossovers, a whole storyline event, and more. One of the coolest parts of Season 5 was sand tunneling, and a lot of players loved it. But it didn't help that it was gone for like 90% of the season. While sand tunneling itself wasn't a hated update, the fact that barely anyone even got to use it for long was something that disappointed the community. And Season 5 also vaulted the pump shotgun and replaced it with something called the Dragon's Breath shotgun. Let me tell you, people didn't like that one. And Epic continued their vaulting spree when it came to Season 6. The most notable update of the season was that sniper snipers were completely removed and replaced with bows. People lost their minds about this. I mean, sure, the bows were awesome, but the lack of snipers really left a hole in people's hearts. And Season 6 also had some OP weapons for no reason at all. The cuttlefish were just C4 you could find by fishing, and the mythic primal shotgun felt like a Chapter 1 gun with how overpowered it was. And then they just vaulted it, gone, poof. At least they replaced it with the recycler, everyone's #1 favorite gun. But now we're in Season 7, and the community has been loving every single update that's released. We've had some really fun new items like the Gravitron and the Inflatable, but it doesn't mean that some things aren't hated. We have the UFOs, which were extremely fun at the start of the season, but they came with a catch. People would just spam the plasma cannon over and over again until there was nothing left of you. And then we had the Railgun, which pros were combining with the recon scanner to literally just wall hack people. This thing was pretty much cheating with no consequences. And that's really it. You're all caught up. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on Top 5 Gaming.